sunshiny day. I think I can make it now. The pain is gone. All of the bad feelings have disappeared. Here is that rainbow I've been praying for. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. See clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone up the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be bright, 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 sunshiny day.
Hello, 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 hello. Good evening. Today is Thursday night again, 25th of August, 2022. And we are on Patsy Development Hour on WhatsApp Radio. And also, we've got a very fine young lady with us tonight called Ama Ankobia. Ama is a globalist of champion, a trailblazer across business who is driving positive change for people of color in the UK. So I'm really honored to have Ama in the studio, and she's going to tell me how she's been featured on the Empower Role Model of 2022. It is not easy to be on that list, but this young lady is going places. And last year, she also won the Rising Star Award in her company. So she's really going places. And I want you to tune in with your uncles, aunties, young children, or the ones who are about to go to university to be empowered and also share her passion of driving change across the Black community and also to be a trailblazer as well. So tonight we welcome Ama Ankobia. So hello, Ama. Can you hear me?
Hi, Pat. Hello. Thank you very much for your warm welcome. Yes, I can hear you perfectly fine. Thank you. I hope you can hear
Great.
me.
Yes, we can hear you perfectly. So great. So tonight, a warm welcome. She's my guest tonight, and really to have a conversation with how she got to where she got to and how she can inspire the young children. She's already doing so much in the young world, I mean the young students' life, and tell us how young people can also copy what she's done to become the future role model in the UK. So Amma, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Once again, thank you, Pat, for having me on here. For the session this evening. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to share a bit about myself and perhaps a bit about what I've been getting up to be listed on the Yahoo's top 100 role models list, and then also the GSK Rising Star Award. So, a bit about me. So, I was born in Ghana. So, come from a family of six. So, four children in total. So I have three siblings, all boys. So only girl of sort of four. And yeah, sort of born in Ghana, went through the education system in Ghana till I was about 9 years old, when my family and I migrated here to the UK. And I went through the education system with primary school, secondary school, and then completed sixth form. So along my journey, I was doing, the usual internships. And I know last week you had You had a previous session with 100 Black interns. So programs such as those had been pivotal in my success and in my career journey as well. So yeah, went through a few internships there before finally applying to university. So I studied pharmacy as university. And upon finishing my pharmacy degree, did a year in training as a clinical pharmacist, qualified and got my name on a register before joining my current company on the Finance Future Leaders program. So that was the first career pivot that I had from the world of pharmacy into finance. And then since joining, yeah, my organization, I have then, leveraged off the learnings that I've had along the journey to really push for some changes. And I've been grateful to have leaders that are willing to listen and not only listen, but take that needle forward to really drive in tangible change for people of color within the organization. So that's been really, really encouraging to see. But I guess we can delve into the extracurriculars that has led to some of the achievements that you've mentioned there as well.
Perfect. So, a pharmacist by training, and then to move from pharmacy to finance. How does the maths work?
Yeah, so I always had an interest in accounting and finance actually, prior to going to university. Um, if I'm being completely honest, I think I was probably more so swayed into the healthcare profession, more so from, sort of parental influence. And, I appreciate that at the time they had my best interest at heart. So my mum works within the NHS, and it was something that she was more familiar with. And, sort of going back to about sort of 8 years ago, I guess you didn't have as much diversity in those corporate spaces as we do today. And I think that was something that probably played a factor in me, in her encouraging me to go down the healthcare route. I think there was that element of job security as
Mhm.
opposed to, sort of seeing a black woman making it to the top with the ambition that I have in the corporate field. Not to say that it was impossible, but it wasn't going to be an easy journey. And I think from a point of sheltering, sort of her child, she encouraged me to go down the pharmacy route. So yeah, no, I was good at the sciences, enjoyed both the sciences and the maths, and yeah, did the pharmacy as a vocational course. I enjoyed, the 4 years that I spent at university. And yeah, overall, I wouldn't say that I regretted that decision. The plan was always to complete the pharmacy, become a pharmacist, knowing that I have that in a bag, and then pivot to study in my accounting qualification, join a firm, which I did, which then, helped me to train in to ultimately to become a qualified accountant. So that was the rationale behind that. So it wasn't a dream that I gave up. I knew there was something that I could do once I had that, I guess, safety net. So that was the thought process there. But my goal was to, yeah, ultimately not give up and to go after that dream as opposed to thinking, what if I had done, sort of the finance to have begun with.
Well, at the end of the day, you've got both, which is a great achievement. So, moving on, what drives you? What's the passion that drives you? Because you're coming from a family growing up in Ghana, coming here and you're saying that, wow, there's so much I can do. And then, what is the passion that drive you to really achieve so much success in your young career?
Yeah, I would say definitely my background had a big influence. Growing up, there was a huge emphasis on education and that being linear to success. And although that continues to stand to be true, it's not all the way true when you do make it to the sort of corporate world. And there's a bit of a blueprint, and there's a bit more going on beyond sort of the hard work and putting your head down and getting education done. So I think definitely parental influence, sort of cultural influence around, education being the gateway to success, was a key part. And I guess I just come from a family of very hardworking individuals. So I'm inspired by my siblings, by their successes, and we encourage each other. So I think that they'd probably be my key drivers to know that I know where I'm coming from and I know what I've seen growing up in Ghana. So to come here and to see the opportunities available, it's almost like Amma, you have to make it work here because there are opportunities in abundance. And for those that didn't have it back in Ghana, they managed to make something work, something of it. My parents, for example, who I'd say are my role models, they've achieved so much with the little that they had to begin off in life with. So how much more can I achieve given the opportunities that I have now to really run with the foundations that I've been given as a start to life? So I think they're probably, yeah, my biggest drivers and inspiration. And then on the change element, I just think And I think I'm very passionate about, sort of justice and equality, and to come from a space where you are the majority to now a space where you are the minority and seeing the disparities amongst that. That's definitely something that fuels my desire to definitely drive change until we get to a more equitable sort of state
For
in the world. So yeah.
great stuff. So your parents really drive the part. You had the passion, and but you can see coming from a, a, a place like Ghana where you couldn't see the privilege, but coming here, you saw the privilege and you grab it. What can you tell parents who are struggling to really motivate their children to say, educate yourself, there is a chance for you? What will you tell those parents?
Yeah, my advice to parents would be to be patient with their kids, and to try and listen to their kids as well, and to listen to their kids' interests, and then to try and leverage and find a middle ground. Um, in my case, I was good academically to have begun with, whereas maybe not everyone might have been in that position. So maybe someone else might want to pursue an alternative route. So I'd say be patient with your child. Continue to encourage your child to pursue, at least a basic level of education, because I think it's always needed. But try and see where their interests are, see where their strengths are, and try and nurture your child towards those, because that's where they will ultimately excel. As opposed to getting them to do something that they don't have a genuine desire for. You don't want to be in a situation as a parent where your child's done something, but they resent you for going down that route when they have a passion for something else. So I'd say, try and be level headed. Don't give up on your children. Encourage them in what their interests are. But obviously, there's the element of, yes, you can do what's fun, but there's also the harsh reality of you need to make a living for yourself. So there has to be that balance from the child's perspective and also from the parent's perspective of, yes, this is what you want to do and it's fun, but will it be sufficient to pay the bills at the end of the day when you're an adult and standing on your own two feet as well? So that element of being a realist, but then also allowing them to follow through with their passion and finding that sweet spot, I think is where the child and everyone ultimately wins. I'd say.
Perfect. So, parents listening out there, listen to your children, be kind to them, and also be patient and really find out where your strength, the strength of your children are. Instead of concentrating on your weak self, look at the strength of where your strength is, and really you will shine on your strength instead of focusing on areas that you are not so good at. Focus on your strength to really energize you to make you the best version of yourself. And on Patsy Development Hour is to really be the best version of yourself. I come in here Thursday to really bring people like Amma, people that we had at 10K Black Intense, to really talk about how we can really engage our children so that they can be the best version of themselves. Tonight, the studio number is 0208 144 8773. Please, if you have any questions for Amma to really engage what the extra activity that helped her. That's where we're going to talk next. The extra activity that her parents had to pay for her to go to really help her and see what she can become. And she know she was academically good, but she also had a drive to say, I want to be somebody. So Amma, was there any extra activities or extra activities that your parents really supported you to do when you were growing up?
Yeah, in terms of activities, so there was, the element of the extra tuition.
Mhm.
Um, so I had Saturday classes. So I did sacrifice the number of my Saturdays in extra tuition. So although I was doing well academically, my parents always wanted me to go that extra mile to be even better. And I went to an interstate school, and the when you compare that to perhaps those that have been to private schools, the level of education, there is a delta between the quality of education provided there. So in terms of bridging that delta, my parents supported with that. I always had a passion for baking. So outside of sort of academia as well, for baking, cakes, cupcakes, so on and so forth. So that's something that my dad in particular was very supportive of. And I followed through to start my own cake business when I was at university as well. And that's something that helps me to hone my entrepreneurial skills, and to keep up that business acumen while studying pharmacy. And that was a key part in me then securing that finance graduate role, and once I became a qualified pharmacist and was looking for graduate opportunities.
So you had your own business whilst you were in uni, a
Yeah.
cake business.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So,
Yeah,
it's not all that you're studying academically, but if you had a side hustler, that can really bring you money. That's what Amma is
absolutely.
saying. Go for it and push yourself. Great. So now, Amma, graduating and getting one of the top companies to work for, how are you coming in with starting and then also becoming a rising star, which is amazing? How did you get
Yeah. So what was interesting was when I studied pharmacy at university, what if you are familiar with, sort of pharmacy, typically when you're at university, you're faced with three routes traditionally. So to go down either the hospital route, so as a clinical pharmacist, the community route, which might be the likes of, your Boots, Lloyd's, sort of your high street pharmacies, or to go down the industry route. And that wasn't something that was spoken about at all at university for me. So going into industry pharmacy to begin with was almost unheard of. And I was very, very lucky actually to have come across an organization called Arrival Education, which is a social mobility group that really drives sort of individuals from what some people would describe as underprivileged background as a result of, be it, their socioeconomic status, or perhaps, as a result of their ethnicity. So yeah, they really just really pick, sort of diverse talents from different pots and really encourage them to apply for big corporates. And I went on a program with them, and I was paired up with someone senior to reverse mentor in another organization called Skanska. So that was my first exposure to the corporate field, and reverse mentoring in that capacity. So once again, that played a pivotal role in building my confidence and knowing that I have someone fighting my corner that can believe in me. So I think that was probably the first element of sponsorship that I received in that capacity. So once I had finished that initial reverse mentoring program, I then applied for the graduate program at my current organization. And then yeah, I went through the application processes, and I think what I would advise perhaps anyone that might be in a similar situation is don't be afraid to bring your unique self to your applications, or to your interviews. That's something, it's a power that you hold that no one else will ever hold. A replica can never be better than the original, and you will always be the original. So by default, you win by default. I acknowledged that I was applying for a finance program and I didn't have, a finance background, but I had a pharmacy background. So what I did was I leveraged off the transferable skills that I picked up from my pharmacy degree, for example, or working in a clinical setting. So it might be around, communicating with your multidisciplinary team in the hospital. In finance, you can translate that to management with your stakeholders. So it might be communicating, your results with your senior stakeholders, or maybe explaining it to maybe non-finance colleagues that don't necessarily understand the financial jargon. So I really honed in on, be it communication skills, data gathering, explaining data, taking large complex data into smaller manageable chunks for people to understand, presenting skills. There are so many different skills that I really could have picked, in terms of the similarities from my previous experiences that could be transferred into the finance world. And I really just put myself forward, and I sold myself. I brought in a cake business to highlight my entrepreneurial and business skills. And there might be certain things that you do, such as football or swimming or gaming, whatever it is, you can really bring that forth and let that shine through. So that's what I did, and I was successful in landing a place on the finance future leaders program. So
that?
then following on, yeah.
So I really want to hear more about the Arrival Education organization and where they are based. That if parents are listening, they can really tap into it, because we have so many organizations there that support Black or minority people, but we don't know about them. So can you talk a bit more about the Arrival Education, how you got involved with them and where they are based, and if people want to really keep in touch to help them? I mean, people are finished uni or people are about to embark on their A levels. What support can they get from Arrival Education?
Yeah, so Arrival Education, as I mentioned, they've been absolutely pivotal in my career journey. And essentially, what they are is, they're a business, and what they do is they help diverse talent,
Mhm.
in getting into these spaces. So within the corporates that perhaps maybe, within my parents' generation wouldn't have had access to.
Mhm.
And, they just also, there's so the two elements of it. So they help businesses unlock their diversity dividend. So to break that down, if you think of the diversity dividend as the more diverse an organization is, so diverse in their thoughts, in their neurodiversity, in ethnicity, so on and so forth, the more ideas they're able to generate. So ultimately, that puts them at the forefront to be more advantageous to being successful in their industry, essentially. So there's a dividend that pays off from invested in diverse talent. So it's essentially helping organizations to unlock that diversity dividend. And then on the other end, diverse talent then have access and equal opportunity to now be given an equal chance to also excel in such, to walk through the door to begin with, and then once they're through the door to also excel in those organizations. So they have a website which is arriveeducation.com, so you can go on there and see what businesses that they've worked with. So it might be in banking, it might be in, sort of it varies. It might be in pharmaceuticals, it might be in sort of just food, law. There's so many different people that they've worked with, organizations that they've worked with. So it just depends on what your interests are. Um, Give the website a search and see if that's something that would be of interest to your kids or perhaps to yourselves. And then there are also other organizations similar to Arrival Education, such as the Brokerage is also another one that I had engaged with earlier on, sort of between secondary school and sixth form. So I had a few internships in insurance, in accounting, in law. So, sort of as I was growing up, I was picking up all these internship and all these experiences, which also helped in me getting to where I am today. So yeah, I'd highly, highly, highly recommend, if anyone's listening that's interested in this, feel free to reach out to me or to Pat, and we can share further details. But yeah, Arrival Education, the Brokerage, and there are a few others, such as there's one more that I've literally just forgotten.
I think
There
one
are a few out
that
there.
is the Genius, which also help Black
Yeah.
boys to really push themselves to get. So one thing I'm hearing from you is don't wait till you get to university before you go for the internship job. Whilst you're in sixth form, start looking for the internship job where you want to work. Climb on the corporate ladder. Don't wait. And as we were talking about 10K Black interns 2 weeks ago, it is what gives you the drive to say, oh, I would like to work for this company. So you don't stop yourself. Have a vision, visualize where you want to be, and really take it out there. I'm going to take a few minutes break and we'll be back. It's for unknown that I have inside. It will never die. For love, I live my life from this moment on. I'm out to never lose sight. If I ever doubt the reason why I feel, I'll stop questioning my fears and know it's for love alone. I live my life from this moment on. I'm out to never lose sight. If I ever tell the reason why I feel, I start questioning on me and know it's for love alone. Hello, hello again on Patsy Development Hour. And tonight we've got a top role model of Yahoo who is here with us talking about her passion, her drive, how she's able to go to where she has got to at the moment. She's young, but she's driving and determined to bring change in the corporate world and also in our young people's life. So, Amma, recently you hosted a program about 18 to 20-year olds on and really helping them to understand how the corporate world. Can you tell us a bit about that a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, so this was one of the programs run by Arrival Education, and essentially what they're doing is to upskill talent, especially when you're coming straight from, education, be it from sixth form or from secondary school. I think there's a delta between where you are once you finish off and what you're expected to be like as a young working professional. So the aim of that program essentially was to upskill talent and young individuals to really understand the world of corporate world, of corporate work, and then also seeing, what skills that they should be honing in on, what they should be working on. How to present yourself, how do you show up, in terms of being present in meetings, and really just giving them that confidence boost. So we spoke of a range of topics from, sharing my experiences, what kind of things they can be involved in once, they do start working, how do you show up, confidently, in your most authentic self as well. And I think these are important things that I wish I had growing up. And that's one of my sort of the key things that I always say to myself is how can I be the person that I needed when I was their age, for example. So trying to really role model that. And then hoping that, even if it's just one person that benefits from that, that's a life, changed in some respects, in some regards. So and that's what that program was about. So it's really just empowering the young people to be well equipped for when they do step into these spaces that we're speaking of.
Great stuff. So you've experienced it and you are out there to really support the young ones to really get to where they need to be. Thank you. Then that's why you're a role model to really help our youngsters. What else can you really tell somebody struggling to say, I've done everything, but I can't get to where I want to get to? What would you tell them to do?
Yeah, I would say you have to be patient with yourself. It can be so frustrating when, you have the grades or you have the experience, or sometimes you might be told you need the experience to get the experience, but how do you get the experience without the experience? Can be quite frustrating. So I would say, take every opportunity as it comes. And keep persevering. It goes back to the point that you made, Pat. Don't wait for an opportunity to come to you. You have to go for these things. And when you compare it to your other counterparts, they might have family members, and there's a lot of nepotism that happens where um I had a friend recently in one of the top organizations actually that went for a reverse mentoring experience, and as she walked in there, someone asked, "Oh, whose daughter are you?" Or sort of who's your dad or who's your mum in the organization. So it's a common practice where those that are already in these spaces bring their own into these spaces, which is completely fine. But if you don't have anyone, or if you're a first generation migrant and you don't have, be it parents or aunties or uncles in these spaces, it can be quite difficult for you to get your foot through the door. So you have to be proactive in finding these opportunities for yourself. And that's where these social mobility groups, and the other one I referenced was SEO Scholars. So that's another one to note down. And that's where these social mobilities groups come and they present you with an opportunity, and they really push you to really excel in those spaces. And if you're unsuccessful in gaining an internship, it might be a Saturday job that you're doing. I mean, I worked in a football stadium at one stage. I think this was between um sixth form, actually. Yeah, once I was in either year 12 or year 13 and got promoted to a bar manager. So right there and then you have leadership skills coming in from the age of 16. So you can really pick so many different experiences that you're currently doing, as long as you're not staying idle and you're not doing anything with your time. You might be a leader at church, or you might just help organize certain activities. That's project management skills in itself. So learn as much as you can, and just really leverage, and don't be afraid to to boast of it in those interviews, because that's not the time to be meek and to be humble and quiet. You're in competition with others that have had a head start. So when you do enter those rooms, it's then time for you to talk about, what you've done. Given the fact that, you might have been offset in life for whatever reason it is, irrespective of those setbacks, you've still managed to accomplish X, Y, and Z and to have come this far. So I think it's so important to, really carry yourself and be unapologetically yourself and just really own your experiences, and don't be afraid to bring them to light when you do find yourself in these rooms.
Yes, and I really like that because my motto in life is always ask, if it's a yes, you're a winner. If it's a no, you go on to the next one. So it's be uniquely yourself. And that's what this radio show is about. Be the best version of yourself. There is no one else like you. So whatever God has given you, just let it shine in you. And that's what Amma is saying. So obviously these social mobility groups, they are there to really support us, and I think diversity now is really in general across the board, and they really want to do, since we had 2020 when we had the Floyd issue, things have really shifted in our favor. So for me, I will say whatever you intend to do, go for it. Amma, what can you say? Can you see the difference since we have the George Floyd episode, how things have really changed? What can you say about that?
Yeah. Yeah, things have definitely shifted. I think in terms of the type of conversations that are being had to begin with, initially it would have been, sort of a taboo to maybe have spoken about, race, or to have spoken about the injustices in the workplace. And I'm thankful that, I see within my workplace that at least a conversation is welcomed. And, even though we do still have some way to go, there has been good progression, and that's been encouraging to see. And what would be even better for me now moving forward is, can we turn that dial up to action? Beyond conversation. I think that's where we really start to see those tangible results, and to see whether or not we can really hold our organizations to account as to what, they said they are going to deliver on. So then that's definitely one key element of it for me. To also add, there have been a number of opportunities that have opened up as a result of the unfortunate, circumstances of, George Floyd, and there are so many others that have, suffered at the hand of injustices. And as a result of that, corporations are being held to account to increase their diversity indexes, to ensuring that, they do have, diverse numbers of people within their leadership, for example. So, I mean, there's a difference between, having diversity within the organization, but are they being promoted throughout the levels of seniority? So that's also a key element that's also being looked at. And I think, it's so important that people leverage of these opportunities and these schemes and these openings, because, perhaps if you had two candidates, for example, that were equally capable of completing the job, to the same standard, equally had the same chemistry with the team, there might be a slight bias towards going for the diverse candidate, just to have that diversity within the team, going back to the diversity dividend that I, initially explained. So you do have that favorability, whereas beforehand, that might have not necessarily been the case beforehand. So it's important to really grab these opportunities as they come. Doors are starting to open. I wouldn't say that, it's 100%, sort of equitable at the moment, but we're working towards it. And, if these opportunities are presenting, you need to be making sure that you're taking advantage of it as well and doing your part. And it's not just, getting your foot through the door, as I always say, but also hold the door for others for when you do get your foot through. And, that's something that I've always held myself to account to do. That okay, I'm in this position now, but that's not the end of it, because there's a generation that's yet to come after me that I'm hoping will do even greater than I'm doing. And because, others have been before me and they've laid down certain foundations for me to do what I'm doing at the moment. So it's important to also hold the door once you do get through that door, and to encourage others to also, not just get to where you're at, but also overtake what you've done. And that's how we're really going to progress through. So I'd really encourage people to, yeah, really just go for those opportunities. Don't shy away from it. And in line with what you were saying, Pat, the worst thing that can happen is you get a no. You're not going to die because you were told a no. Sometimes a no is just not now. So take it on the chin, and then just
Of
move it to
course.
somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah. I like the idea that at the moment we are really agitating our organization for them to thrive in diversity. So for me, if I'm a place that I can see that there is minority, I will push. I've already organized a meeting with my site leadership next week to talk about things that I can see that we can do on the site. And nobody's telling me to do that. I'm doing that myself. And for diverse reverse mentoring, I'm also championing it with senior leadership to say we need diverse reverse mentoring to understand the culture and how we go through. So you're already championing it. And also people who are already in the HR scene, whereby you see that things are not happening, changes like slightly. And if I'm in a team whereby I mean, last year I was in a team helping to um, interview interns, I mean, industrial placement student. I made sure we chose the person of color because I can't see much of us in that team. So, whilst I'm there, as you're saying, bring other people's on board. Don't just shut the door. We are there to really make sure we shine. So that's what Amma you are doing. Next, as we're moving on, um, what really stands out for you now that you are a role model? What, I mean, you're already doing a lot. What stands out for you to open doors for other people to come in?
What stands out for me, I would probably say, I think I have an appreciation of those that went before me, and I think that's probably another source of my motivation. Because I appreciate that for those that were before me, it wasn't any easier. And perhaps the George Floyd situation, in addition to a number of other happenstances in the past, have in the recent past has probably helped to expedite the progression. But knowing that others had to do it through the hardship also serves as a source of strength for me to keep pushing on, irrespective of, be it the barriers that I may face.
Mhm.
And sort of coming in, from the reverse mentoring, sometimes people just don't understand, and sometimes it is coming from a place of ignorance, or they're just unaware. And it takes a lot of patience to, okay, let's go through the steps, let's do this again. Let me take you through the journey to understanding. But it's really helping others to bridge the gap to understand that this is the reality that diverse talent face, and you in a position of power, I need you to partner with me. How can you be an active ally to really help push this forward? So I'd say I'm seeing more engagement, I'm seeing more of an appetite for people to really leverage off, be it the authority or the power that they have within their organizations to bring about this change. And it goes back to that agitation factor that you said, to really shake things up. And sometimes there might be a cost to it. There might be a cost to it. And I think that's just the cost of leadership at times. You kind of have to be the first to do things. You at times you might find yourself in a compromised situation where you're standing aside from the masses, but it takes courage. It really does take courage to show up to a senior leader and say, I don't think these are the things that are going so well in the organization. Let's have a conversation and see how we can bring about change. So yeah, it does take courage, but it needs to be done, because for me personally, I don't know about others, but I can't sit silent knowing that this is at hand, and I'm in a position to maybe do something about it, but I'm not doing anything about it.
Perfect. So, you can't just keep quiet and watch things go the wrong way. You have to speak, and you might lose your job doing that. But it is better to speak than to keep quiet. Have you, I should say, experienced microaggression whilst you are becoming a role model?
I'd say mostly in my experiences, they've been mostly pleasant, and I think I've been in a bit of a privileged situation where I have been guided by mentors, and also for those that I have reverse mentored, they've helped me in navigating those conversations within my organization. And then, aside from that, I've also had groups within our ERGs, members within our ERGs that have served as great role models to me as well. And they've really helped me to navigate those really difficult situations or conversations. I wouldn't say that at this stage of my career I have overtly experienced, be it any microaggression immediately. um I'm hoping that won't be the case in the future, but I wouldn't be surprised if I did experience it. But I thank, sort of the wisdom of, sort of my mentors that can pass that down to help me navigate that for if I do encounter that. But I think at this stage, I don't think I can say that, yeah, I've experienced that overtly yet. But I do know that other colleagues probably would have experienced something similar. So I might probably be a bit of an anomaly and a minority within that space. But I know for certain, a number of colleagues definitely would have faced something similar.
Great stuff. Um, so for you, I mean, coming from Ghana, putting your own your education. Is that the same thing for your other siblings as well? Have they championed on a role model attitude?
Yeah, I would say so actually, because I said, they really do inspire
First,
me, and we.
are you the first
Sorry,
child? Are you the first child?
no, no. So I have an older brother. I'm the only girl, or sort of the first girl. And then two younger brothers. So I'd say, yeah, we're quite close in age, so about 2 years apart from each other. So I think we really inspire each other, be it in our educational level, and then also in our professional careers, and also outside of work, our sort of various side hustles that we do as well. And I'm thankful for the foundations laid by my parents, because they served as a great model to us, and probably also to our faith as well, which has also really strengthened us in that remit. Um, but yeah, I would say, yeah, overall, it's how encouraging and supportive they've been as a network to me, beyond looking outside for those external, be it sponsorship and mentorships as well. And yeah, academically, they all, did fine. By the grace of God, they've all excelled in their careers, and they're continuing to excel. And it makes me excited, very excited, when I think about sort of where they're going to be it in the next, 10, 15 years, in a position to really lobby and really drive change. And similarly, they've benefited of these social mobility groups as well. And it's just such a huge shift, and it makes such a huge difference, because I always say, talent is equally distributed. We're all talented. However, opportunities on the other end are not equally distributed, and that's why these social mobility groups do come in, and they help to leverage and really even out the playing fields, where opportunities that might have been close to you then becomes available to you. And once you do get in there, it's up to you what you do with it, to run with it, to really network, and to create and open other doors. If there aren't doors, create a new door. If there's not a table, create a table for yourself. So it's just really being a go-getter and having that mentality of, you know I'm not going to sit here and wait for things to be handed to me, but really going for it. And I think that's something that my parents have had to do, being migrants from Ghana to here and making it out here. I think it's something that they needed, that hunger. And I think maybe there might be a difference between perhaps, kids that have been brought up in Ghana and they've experienced certain things, versus maybe those that might have been born here. I think research shows that there is a bit of a disparity there. But irrespective of wherever it is that you're coming from, there's definitely room for you to really go for those opportunities.
Great stuff. And I like the idea of social mobility groups. And we might say some of our Ghanaian parents or sisters, brothers, and uncles, they've never heard about these social mobility people. Can you really talk about some of these social mobility groups out there that people can tap in? You've said quite a few, but I think it's
Yeah.
so important that we really talk about that. There are companies or group of people who are there who can mentor your young children and help them to get to where they need to get to. I will not talking about mentoring. Mentoring is a key for your growth. So, Amma, can you talk about a bit of this social mobility and how they can mentor youngsters, no matter what age they are, to really help them to be the best version of themselves?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So in addition to the internships that are provided to individuals when they do apply for these programs, there's also areas where you can be a reverse mentor to senior leaders. So one of the first companies that I reverse mentored for was Skanska, which is a massive construction company, where I had one of their senior leaders that I was reverse mentoring, giving them, both sort of a racial perspective, and also from an ethnic perspective as well. What it's like growing up, and sort of what it's like for me being here. So that was the first sort of reverse mentoring, normal mentoring relationship that I had there. And my mentor there was incredible, and he also encouraged me to apply in for the graduate program that I'm currently on. And then I also had the opportunity to work with Tesco, the organization. So typically, sort of initially before engaging with Tesco, when I thought of Tesco, I was talking about, sort of the supermarket, what I see on a day-to-day level. But there's Tesco, the organization as a corporation. And it is, if I'm not mistaken, the UK's largest private sector employer. So there's a massive, huge, influence there. So I was reverse mentoring the CEO of the Tesco Asia business, and that was probably one of the most invaluable experiences that I've had to date. I know these things really build you up in terms of how to engage with the seniorest of senior leaders. How do you understand what their thought processes are? How do they lead such an organization? And they deposit these nuggets of wisdom within you that I then, when I now joined my organization, was able to bring those in, even as a young person coming in, being able to, challenge senior leaders, not just for the sake of challenging, but literally get them to see, the light in what else could be. I've worked with, GSK. So GSK Unlocked is another program that's run by GSK where, talent is paired up with senior leaders and they go through a series of mentoring relationships to get them prepared to be in a, in the workplace. And then, all of this then amalgamated to me then being a reverse mentor to the CFO of my current organization as well. And then, it then builds up your confidence where, I came and I thought within the finance remit, we don't have a lot of diversity. And there's so many different branches of diversity. It might be, sort of ability, being able-bodied or disabilities. It might be from neurodiversity, from gender, so on and so forth. I thought we can do better than this. So one of the areas that I came in and, really spearheaded with a group of others that had a similar mindset was to create a finance I&D group. And from that, we enlisted a diverse reverse mentoring scheme within the organization where we had over 80 people join in. And, it's just the testimonials for that has been incredible. And to know that just from planning and organizing such an activity, people have had those life-changing conversations and experiences, which then influences the leaders and how they lead and how they promote those that they're managing into positions of seniority. And it goes back to opening those doors for others to move up the levels. So I'd say don't underestimate yourself as young talent. Yes, you might be young, but I've had influences on these CEOs, C exec groups and the C-suite execs from the little position that I'm coming in from, but just having their ears and giving them that diverse perspective from where I'm coming from, it then sparks a thought or even plants a seed, which then they marvel over and drives them to, to change and act, and drive action from the power and authority and influence that they have within their organizations.
Great stuff. We're going to take a 2 minutes break and we will be back.
And he lives forever. I'll proclaim, thou hast taken from my sins. What the precious life he gave, but now he's alive and there's an empty grave. And I know our Redeemer, He lives. I know my Redeemer lives. Let all creation
Hello, hello, hello. It's Patsy Development Hour on WhatsApp Radio. Tonight we've got Amma Ankobia with us, and she is the number, 100 role model of Yahoo, which is a privilege, a trailblazer to be in. And then she won the Rising Star Award last year within the ERG, which she's part of. So, Amma, thank you for giving us all the nugget. She's talked about social mobility, active allies, sponsorship, and also making sure, wherever you go, you are seen and you are ahead of. And you don't just take anything just like that. Be the best version of yourself and speak up. So now, parents out there, as you've got young children out there who are about to go to university, who are about to go to A levels, Amma is saying, internship, internship. Don't forget to really go to places that you want to see yourself be. Alma, did you visualize to be working for a large corporate organization before you got there?
I wouldn't say that I initially did. Um, Sometimes it's you can't be what you don't see. And if you can't imagine it, if you don't know that certain roles exist, if you don't know that certain organizations exist as a result of the environment that you're in, and you don't have that exposure, then it's almost impossible for you to dream of that. And that's why, having the exposure that I had from, the social mobility groups really opened my eyes, seeing that there's a bigger world beyond, just becoming a pharmacist and leaving it there, which is a great achievement in itself. And there's a bigger world out there, and you're more than capable. So I think sometimes parents don't know. Parents might push you in one direction as a result of their experiences, and they're trying from the best that they've experienced in life. And I think from the principles that they'd be using, I think principles always remain the same, irrespective of the year, the generation. They always remain the same. But I do think the environment and the circumstances do change. So sometimes you might need to go out there and see what's out there, and then bring that to your parents, and then saying, mom, dad, I'm thinking of X, Y, and Z. This is what they do. So you might need to be proactive on that end. But yeah, sometimes things just won't come to you. So be proactive in finding out what else is out there. I didn't think that I'd be working for a large corporation, but when I was enlightened through my engagement with the different mentors, and they encouraged me that you're great at what you do. You're good at this. You're good at that. Consider X, Y, and Z. And I think sometimes that's what it takes for someone in a leadership position, or just someone just to say that, Emma, I think you're going to be good at this, or Pat, I think you're great at this. Have you considered this role or that job? And linking that back to sponsorship, it's sort of people really speaking and advocating for you when you're not in the room. And it's so important that once you do get into these organizations, who's speaking for you in your absence when you're not in the room, who's advocating for you, who's saying that I think that she can do this role and I think she should be promoted on. It's so important because these are parts of the blueprint. Because in our sort of in our culture, we're told work hard, get the grades. Yes, it's important, but hard work alone isn't going to see you throughout to success. So there's the networking element. There's so many other elements, sponsorship, the relational building elements, going above and beyond just the day-to-day role. They're the things that are going to see you getting promoted. So it's important to also bear that in mind when you do find yourself in these positions and roles.
Perfect, because most of the sponsorship are not even, you don't even know them. They will be behind the scenes, and
Yeah.
they will be doing that. But one book I read, I think, from one of the toughest women in Wall Street in UK, in the US, and she was saying, whatever you do out there, bring it to the corporate world. Let them know what you're doing, because that will also support you as well. And I spoke about my radio show yesterday or the day before with one of the communications director, and she was saying, Pat, next year we need to do something with this. So speak up, as you said. Don't sit down and wait. Always agitate. Go in and really find your niche, and really go in and really do what you can do. Don't just go down, and Amma said, put your head in, because we are told our children work double as hard as the white children. But please make sure you are seen, because A, if they do a little thing, they will shout for everybody to know. Whilst us, we will do the majority of the work and put our head down. Don't put your head down. Make sure you do the work, but make sure you also speak up of what you are doing so that you will be heard of as well and know that you are making your mark as well. Alma, so what can you tell? We've got about 5 minutes before we finish. You've talked about social mobility, which is so important. You've talked about listen, be kind to your children, be patient. Also, make sure you focus on your strength, what you are good at. What else can you really tell parents that are struggling to tell their can't see where their children are moving towards? Can they really, any of those social mobility companies come on board and literally help some of the parents who are struggling?
Yeah, I would say it's important parents maybe perhaps to also be honest with yourself. Sometimes you don't have all the answers and no one does. And that's the beauty of community. So it might be, someone within the church or maybe within a workplace or a friend of a friend that might be able to also bring forth these opportunities or these experiences that you don't know. So I think it's important also for parents to be honest and say that, okay, you're interested in this area and I'm not familiar with it, but let's explore together. So it's just really being active in your child's life and not necessarily shutting something down because you don't understand it. So for me, for example, growing up, gaming was the worst thing that you could essentially do. You wouldn't spend your summer holidays gaming, or you were given, you can only spend, I don't know, 30 minutes, playing games, and then it's got to be taken away. And it was just something that was very much frowned upon. Whereas in this modern day and age, if we think of it, gamers are making a lot of money and they're enjoying what they're doing and they're loving what they're doing. So it goes back to the environment's changing, the industry's changing, the landscape's changing. And it's important to really be supportive of what your child wants to do. If you don't understand, that's completely fine. Let's do our due diligence and before we fully launch into it. But I think also kids be realistic. I appreciate that the passion's there, but it's so important to be level-headed, because I think our parents definitely do have our best interest in heart at heart, and they want to see us succeed and to do better than they did, on top of the sacrifices that they've had to make. So sometimes they might come across as being harsh or being sort of misunderstood, or just perhaps not on the same page as you, but also try and see things from their perspective, that they do have your best interest in heart at heart, and they would prefer to have that maybe security as opposed to you going out to figure it out and then you landing flat on your face. So it's just good to find that balance is what I'd probably say.
Mm, thank you. So tonight we've been having Amma with us telling us about social mobility, how we can really agitate wherever you are to really and push yourself to be the best version of yourself, you know, and also parents out there, because most of these parents, we did not grow up in London. We don't know about these social mobility groups. Please, now we've got Google, research in your area, the ones that stand out. I didn't even know Tesco, and Amma was saying Tesco really helped her and brought the passion in her. What can you tell about the Tesco issue? We've got about 2 minutes. That really helped you to really and become the best version of yourself.
Yeah, so my Tesco mentor, Alison Horner, she's just an incredible woman I very much respect so much. She's come a long journey from be it, a gender diversity perspective and having to work her way to becoming, the CEO, and before that, the chief people's officer of the organization. And it's just having someone that, has that shared experience from a gender perspective, being able to really vouch for you and say, I see you clearly have strong skills in these areas and you're really good at this, and don't just put your head down. Go ahead and do the above and beyond, the day to day. Make sure you're being visible, make sure you're getting that sponsorship, make sure you're being seen. And it's just someone that's walks the walk and has done it successfully. And it goes back to your mentors. You wouldn't pick someone that isn't successful. You would pick someone that you can look up to, you respect, and she wouldn't have been someone that I would have had access to. Someone coming from, Croydon, for example, and then now having access to someone as such. It's very rare that you do get those opportunities. So it's just having her leadership, her guidance, and we still stay in contact till this day. And she's constantly guiding me in how to navigate these workspaces. That's something that's been pivotal in my career. And they do have different cohorts that do run through. So I'd highly encourage you to really check it out. Sort of Arrival works with Artemis, ASOS, Coots, which is a boutique banking. GSK is one of them. Sky is a program that they're currently doing as well. So if you're interested in the media world, there's just so much out there, honestly. So I'd highly encourage you to really look into these organizations and run with the opportunities, because now's the time. If not now, then when?
Thank you so Amma. Thank you so much, Amma, for being with us. And I think you have to come back in a few months' time to really see what we can do, because as the new children go to university, there are people who are going to sixth form now. GCSE results came out today, and people are thinking, where can we get? And one thing that you said, mentor, reverse diverse mentoring as well. Please get a mentor, and parents as well. We all need mentors to really shape us to be wherever we need to be. So thank you so much for being with us, Amma. And it's all for on behalf of WhatsApp Radio, a very big thank you for really sharing social mobility group, and also parents, be active in your children's life because you want them to be better than what you are now. And obviously I want my children to be better than what have I achieved and where go before what I have. So definitely, we would like to have you back again to really hammer in on what, or hammer in what we haven't done today. But thank you again, and for spending the evening on Party Development Hour. And thank you. Next week, I might get a young guy who will be talking about his industrial placement, which is so important that you gain industrial placement while as you are in university to really help you in the career world. So this month is all been about students, our children, that we really want to big you up and really help you to become the best version of yourself. So thank you for listening to Party Development Hour, and we will see you next week. And thank you, Amma. Thank you.
My
Bye.
pleasure. Thank you for having me. Bye.